mass immigration over the past couple of years is that all good people support it. Immigration is the ultimate moral litmus test. When a caravan of poor migrants from the third world shows up uninvited on your doorstep, the decent among us step forward to welcome them in. That's commanded by the moral code of cable news, and more importantly, by the poem at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty. Only bigots and haters slam the door. That's what they've been telling us in the media now for years. CNN's Jim Acosta has made that point repeatedly. Well, it has finally happened. The caravan has arrived. But here's the funny part. It didn't arrive in our country. It arrived in Mexico, in the border city of Tijuana, just across the fence from San Diego. The people of Tijuana are Mexican citizens, so by definition, they are good people, much better than you are. They're more welcoming and compassionate, less selfish and less American. They must be thrilled by the new arrivals. As immigrants, their new Honduran neighbors will grow their economy and add rich new diversity to their culture. That's what low-skilled immigrants always do. Again, a point that Jim Acosta frequently makes. So are the people of Tijuana grateful for this caravan from Honduras? Fox's William Lajeunesse went there to find out firsthand. Here's what he discovered.
Should this caravan have been stopped at the Guatemala border?
Of course. I agree with that 100%. It should have.
The country has to be beware of these people because they are people, they are bad people.
Because they don't belong here, they're just migrants, but it's like the same, in the same case, it's like when Mexican migrants going to the U.S., they're undocumented.
You know of incidences here in Tijuana and in other cities that some of these people that are coming into with these caravans are committing crimes. This is not about racism. We don't dislike a certain group of people because they're from a country, one country or another. We are here because our government has not taken control of these, what we call invasion.
Whoa, wait a second. That's not the script we expected at all. The migrants are disruptive. They, quote, don't belong here. Some of them are criminals. It sounds like what they're saying in Tijuana is when Honduras sends its people, it's not sending their best. And that's a racist statement, obviously. We know that because Donald Trump said something like that about Mexico once, and the geniuses on cable news never forgot it. They're still talking about that line years later as evidence of Trump's white supremacy. And yet here you have non-white people in Mexico saying pretty much exactly the same thing. How can that be? Let's check back with Tijuana to make sure we heard that right.
Donald Trump tenía la razón. Es una invasión. Lo que dijo Donald Trump es verdad. Es una invasión.
Donald Trump was right? Wait, how can someone in Mexico say that? Everybody in Mexico hates Trump. He believes in borders. Nobody in Mexico believes in borders. They're better than that. Well, maybe that was just a lone extremist talking, some crazy person who found a microphone and a TV camera. We better check with the elected mayor of Tijuana. If anyone can speak for the people of that city, he can. Here's what the mayor had to say about the migrant caravan.
Ninguna ciudad en el mundo está preparada para recibir esta, si se me permite, esta avalancha, ¿no? Este tsunami.
An avalanche? A tsunami? Note the dehumanizing terms he uses. If this were a liberal arts college in America, the mayor might be suspended for saying that. He'd definitely be in some kind of diversity re-education class by now. If he worked at Google, he'd be fired instantly. But he's not a student or a tech drone. He's the mayor of Tijuana, where people can still say what they think without fear of being denounced by Don Lemon on CNN as a white supremacist. So they do say what they think. And in Tijuana, what they think is that a massive and abrupt demographic change is destabilizing to a society, no matter what the color of the people involved might be. It's particularly destabilizing if you're not rich, and most people in Tijuana are not rich. Even in Mexico, they're wary of ignoring the law completely and treating borders like they don't exist. They know that doesn't end well. Most people know that doesn't end well. The difference is, in Mexico, they can say that out loud. We could learn from that. Enrique Acevedo was an anchor at Univision. He was just in Tijuana. He joins us tonight from Miami, Florida. Enrique, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
I'm confused. We just saw a group of Mexican citizens in Tijuana saying basically the same things that President Trump says, almost to the word, endorsing Trump. Are they white supremacists?
Well, you have to understand that unlike human beings, intolerance, hate, and even racism flow freely across borders. And that's what you saw in those interviews. They're not running for president. They're not running for president of the United States either. They are part of a group of around 300 protesters in a city of 1.3 million who, like many others along the way, this caravan, are opposed to their presence in Tijuana. And, you know, the overwhelming majority of people in Tijuana welcome immigrants. It's a city of immigrants.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just back up a little bit? No, it's a big city, for sure. So, can I say to you, hold on, you just said that they're racist, but they're Latino, Spanish-speaking Latinos, attacking other Spanish-speaking Latinos. So where's the racism?
Well, we're not a monolithic community, Tucker. We have people from Central America, from Venezuela, from Colombia, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. And yes, racism exists in Mexico towards Central Americans. It's not new. It's happened through throughout history.
But I'm confused. How is it racist?
Wait, but hold on. Migrants face when they go across Mexico: violence, extortion, and racism.
No, okay, but I'm not quite sure how it's racism if they appear to be of the same race, but moreover, they said, and I think I'm quoting one of the protesters, it's not about racism. This is almost exactly what he said. We want our government to enforce our borders, which is what a lot of people, including me, say frequently in the United States. Maybe, has it occurred to you, maybe it's not just racism? Maybe it's okay to want your government to keep your border intact?
I think we should stop framing this debate about immigration in absolutes. Good, bad, enforcing, not enforcing. The border, as you saw there and as you can see, is enforced. There's border security through Border Patrol, through military members, and through things like drones and ATVs and high-tech surveillance equipment. So we're enforcing the border. We're just getting ready for this large influx of immigrants, which is not a crisis or an invasion. It's just a
I know what the talking points. No, I know what the talking points are. But what's so interesting about these interviews is that they seem to contradict the talking points. So to the people of Tijuana, we can both agree they're probably not white supremacists. I think we can take that as a matter of faith. They seem to think this is a crisis. It's their city. And by the way, their mayor agrees with them. I assume he's not a racist either, or maybe he is. Do you think they have any real concern?
I interviewed the mayor last week, and he walked back some of those statements. He said that all immigrants are welcome in Tijuana, and that he didn't mean any discrimination or harm to the people who were part of the caravan. So, you know, in putting those
well, I'm sure you bullied him,
context, he was
as most politically correct media figures do. But before we get to him retracting his statements under pressure from Univision, can we just address the core question, which is, do you think he has any legitimate complaint? Does anybody whose city is overwhelmed by people from another country have any legitimate complaint at all, or is it always bigotry?
Exactly. I was just complaining that we framed the debate on immigration on absolutes. Of course, he has a point. You know, the city is overwhelmed by the presence of these migrants, and governments, you know, all the governments involved should understand this is a humanitarian crisis and start acting like it instead of just having these security measures at the border. You know, again, I've said this 1,000 times. We can spend a little more in the countries where these people are coming from and make a huge difference at the border, or we can keep spending billions of taxpayers' dollars at the border.
Oh, so you figured out? Wait, hold on. So you figured out?
People are coming from.
I'll actually give you airtime. We're live right now. You figured out how to fix Honduras and make it such a thriving country that no one wants to leave? To raise GDP to American levels? How would you do it? Just really quick, how would you do that?
I'm not coming up with a new idea. We've done this before with USAID, and it's worked. We just need more resources focused there instead of at the border.
It's been
instead
a miserable
of spending $100 billion over the past decade on border security, we could have used some of that money on programs that USAID has said is
working.
So
which program, hold on, which program, hold on. I know what the talking point is. Let's get specific. I'm giving you a chance live on TV.
Yes.
Which program specifically would have made the economy of Honduras so strong that no one would want to leave and come to the United States?
So USAID, for example, is working on 2 of the communities with the highest murder rate in Honduras. Throughout the last 2 or 3 years, with this program, they've been able to reduce violence there and therefore reduce the amount of people who were leaving that town. These are only 2 examples.
So why do we have a caravan of Hondurans coming if the USAID
because violence is not the only factor. We have other factors.
But I'm just saying, what's the problem? Because I hear that a lot from dumb people on, I think Don Lemon said that on CNN. We should spend more money in these countries. Has there ever been a program that has changed a country in the third world that made it so appealing that no one wanted to come to the United States? I don't think there is a program like that, is there?
But again, absolutes, no one. It's impossible to just have a program for everyone. Violence is a factor. Poverty is a factor. Even climate now is becoming a factor. We saw a crew from the Weather Channel with the Caravan. They were, tracking the journey of a group of immigrants from Honduras, where 90% of crops have collapsed. John Carlos Frey, their correspondent, was telling me how the UN has declared Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, a region with famine.
But what about the people?
different
Look,
factors.
I feel sorry for the people in the Caravan, and I understand why they want to come to the United States. I love this country. I appreciate their good-tasting countries. But
And
what
that's
about
the great thing,
people
Tucker. Maybe we should be worried
what about
not
everybody
that people
else?
want to come in. We should start worrying when people don't want to come to the United States.
Well,
when we should
that's
start
going to
worrying.
happen soon if we don't get a real border. So, because we'll be like Honduras. So why would people want to move here? I mean, honestly, my question is, what about the people who live in the United States, or in this case, who live in Tijuana? Do they have any legitimate reason not to want? They do have a legitimate reason.
By all means, of course. You understand that, and we've discussed this in the past. Undocumented immigration is not a desirable outcome for any of the parties involved.
I'm glad you're admitting
these people live in their homes, and the people who
you don't have to be a racist to be against
But there are
illegal
better ways, more
migration.
humane, compassionate, and common sense laws that we could have instead of what we're